business was in Abakaliki. I asked him, how do you do your destoning? Because the main reason that many people don't like, they say local rice and they are scared, is the amount of sand. Be enjoying a nice stew and all of that, and all of a sudden something happens and it spoils everything. I'm sure you've also gone through that same experience. But he said to me, no, that's Stone Age. That's Stone Age. Right now, they have a milling facility that takes care of all of those things, etc., etc. So I really think we are moving along. Now, on the side of sugar, sugar has equally been given that support, so that what you find is people who have a backward integration program for sugar are also being given particular types of incentives, etc., etc., then poultry farming and so on and so forth. What I would like to do as we move to my right-hand side here is, as you speak, I would like perhaps to suggest that you take a look at some of the existing incentives and see if there is something we can do to improve both on the structure of the incentives themselves and the application, the actual implementation. Yes, we will have difficulties like Calvin mentioned and also our colleague here, but I would like to see or hear from you, if you have the experience, if indeed what the government has put in place is something that is working from where you sit or where you stand. That would help us, I think, to fine-tune and to move things forward. So let me call on our next speaker. That is Mr. Akinyonju. Deji Akinyonju. He's going to be, speaking obviously on the same issue, but impact of cassava bread? Yeah. So I think some of the things I mentioned will be applicable to what we will hear or likely hear from him.
Thank you very much.
So please, Deji, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I'm just going to, on what you mentioned earlier on the issue on the challenges. We've all had these challenges, and not everybody has the same access in terms of being able to get all the waivers. We started our business in 2001. We started at the retail point with Chicken Republic. We later realized that as we grew the business, the biggest challenge for us today still is around power and infrastructure. And I was quite glad to hear the president say yesterday that power is on top of his agenda, and also infrastructure and education. As we grew the business, we realized that we started to run out of chicken, and we decided to backward integrate into chicken processing and production. The reason we did that was we were not getting consistent chicken from the existing suppliers at that time, and even up till now. Since we applied to CACS, we got funding from the CACS.
Yeah.
It had a moratorium of about 1.5 years. We also had stories about the waiver on importation of agricultural equipment. Unfortunately for us, as the products got into the country, we experienced the same thing. So we took our case to the top, and we still had challenges getting the bottom to ensure that we can get the goods out of the port. We had over 100 containers at the port that, to cut a long story short, were there for about 9 months. You could get a duty waiver ultimately from the top, but what happens to demurrage? And what happens to the cost of funds? Remember that this is debt. And so we did as much as we could to get the goods out, but we were still 18 months behind schedule. We finally got the project off the ground last year. We now produce about 50,000 birds every week, and the plan is to produce 1 million birds a month. So in terms of the incentives, some of them are there, but we definitely need implementation. We need all the agencies to be talking to one another to ensure that, when we do say that we have policies in place, they are actually implemented on the ground. On the poultry side, since we started, the growth of chicken importation into this country has grown at about 30% compound annual growth rate. So I ask myself, maybe I should have been importing chicken rather than produce chicken. But having said that, there are huge opportunities in the production of chicken. What we need to fight is to ensure that we close our borders to the importation of chicken. That we just have to do that. We have to protect our industry because we cannot produce the way Brazil is producing. I've been to Brazil. The largest producer of chicken, Brazil Foods, slaughters. I went to a plant that slaughters 4 million birds a day. The largest production in this country is about 800,000 a month. So we're far from it. We've heard about comparisons with us and Brazil. The Brazilian government made a very firm decision to drive agriculture. And I heard a bit of it yesterday. I was a bit optimistic. And I'm still optimistic, and I'm hoping that we're going to see that. And commend you, sir, for all the work that you've been doing with this agricultural transformation. On bread, food concepts into chicken, bread, and now chicken production. On bread, bread consumption in the country, 80% is what we all know as agege bread. So 80% of the bread consumed is produced by small-scale bakers. And we are in the organized sector, we're about 20%. Wheat is our biggest product. There's been a lot of work on cassava bread inclusion. We achieved that last year. We achieved up to about 40% cassava inclusion into our bread with the assistance of the ministry assisting us with the importation of some enzymes to stabilize the bread. Cassava. Yes, cassava is good for bread, but the challenge we're having again is how do we get enough high-quality cassava flour? What has been done now is, the big millers in the country, there are about 3 or 4 of the big millers who are really concentrating on the importation of wheat and producing wheat flour. Remember that there's some big incentives from the US or wherever the wheat is coming from to ensure there's employment in their own country. So what you're driving with cassava is a very commendable effort. But we need to get high-quality cassava flour to 80% of the guys who are producing bread in the country, who are the low-scale bakers. And I think the incentives that the government has now put in place by bringing in these compact milling systems would help address that to some point. And we're very hopeful that we'll be able to get more high-quality cassava flour. So my piece is quite simple. I think I'm just going to round up by saying power is important. We can't be successful in agriculture without power. I think infrastructure, we've spent 60% of our own investment on providing roads to our farm and electricity to the farm. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I had to rush you a little bit there. I know you still had some more things to tell us, but please bear with us. The 3 colleagues who are left, we crave your indulgence that you be a bit briefer than that so that we can get the participation of people on the other side. The Honorable Minister of National Planning, who was Minister of Finance at the time we were doing a lot of these ground rules, especially having things that extend to the whole sector rather than individual companies, is here. And I believe that that particular point has helped. Some of you have come to talk to us in the past, that in the past your competitors were getting things because they knew they had access. You mentioned access. This is why I'm bringing this up. We basically try as much as possible now to apply the same rule to everybody in the same sector. And I think that's the ground, the level playing field, that you would like in business. Thank you very much for your contribution. I'm sure during the interactive session, people would have things to say. May I therefore call